Ask the Podcast Coach for March 14th, 2026.
Let's get ready to podcast.
There it is. It's that music that means it is Saturday morning. It is time for Ask the Podcast Coach, where you get your podcast questions answered live. I'm Dave Jackson from theschoolofpodcasting.com, and joining me right over there, the one and only Jim Coulson, not in a Nebraska shirt today. I just noticed.
I should be. We lost the big...
Yeah, insert your logo here.
Last night, so,
oh, did you?
Yeah.
Not feeling as proud as usual.
Not as good as school spray. Happy Saturday morning to you. Happy Pi Day 3.14, right? Today.
Oh.
Get a chance to get out to the old Village Inn. You'd have to be here in the United States. Get out to Village Inn. They're giving, I think they still do free pie. But today is Pi Day. Happy Pi Day.
I didn't know there was. Yeah. It makes sense, 3.14. And you know what goes good with pie?
Oh, a little coffee for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a great segue. You bet.
It was a great. It should always be Pi Day. It's the best sequence ever. And that coffee pour is brought to you by our good friend Mark over at podcastbranding.co. Because, you know, people are going to see you before they hear you or watch you or whatever. And you want to make a great first impression so that people know what your show's about. They want to click it. They're like, ooh, that looks cool. And Mark has done hundreds, if not thousands, of artwork for podcasters, along with websites, PDFs of, checklists, whatever you're giving away, anything that you want to be in front of your audience. You got to give Mark a call over at podcastbranding.co. He's an award-winning graphic artist and a web designer, over 30 years in the design field. And what's great about it is he's going to sit down with you one-on-one, come up with some ideas. He's going to give them to you. You pick your favorite, and you're off to the races and ready to look great in front of your audience. I'm here to tell you there's only one place to go, and that is podcastbranding.co. Tell him Dave and Jim sent you.
Nice. Big thanks to our good friend Dan Lefebvre over there, based on a true story podcast.com. Looking at the archives this week. One we didn't really talk about very much here on the show, but Feud, right? Jessica Lange, Susan Sarandon. I think that's how she pronounces her last name.
Yeah.
Check that out. Based on an actual Hollywood feud that was going on. Maybe before there were reality shows, there were these. So check it out today, based on a true story. Based on a true story podcast.com. Dan, as always, thanks for your sponsorship.
There you go. Daniel J. Lewis says, I need to get pie today. He goes, there is chocolate pie, there's cherry pie, there's pizza pie. Oh, now you're talking, but just not chicken pot pie. There you go. I don't know if
pot pie is okay. I'd go chicken pot pie. I'd take you can't really get a slice of chicken pot pie, but you could get a spoonful. That's pretty delicious. Yeah.
But I'm trying to think of what is my favorite pie. It's hard to pick. I don't know. But
I like pumpkin. This has become a less favorite pie, I think, over time. It used to be a big deal. And during the holidays here in the United States with Thanksgiving, I see a lot of folks going apple these days as opposed to pumpkin.
That's sacrilege. It really is.
I know pumpkin's so delicious, but maybe it's just my family. I don't know. Chat room, you let me know. Maybe it's my family. We get a pumpkin pie for Thanksgiving. I'm the only one that eats it. Which is great.
Maybe because of the fall and pumpkins and everything else. Pumpkin spice, pumpkin this, pumpkin. Maybe people are just
pumpkin spice has ruined it for everybody. See, Sarah just went, what?
Yeah. And there you go. Jeff is saying sweet potato pie is better. And Jeff is saying the Jeffersons, hey, they got their piece of the pie. And my mouse has gone very weird. There we go. Well, here, let's talk a little podcasting. I got this question out because we hear, people want things to be perfect and such. And so this person says, I tracked where my time actually went producing a weekly podcast. And here's the breakdown. He says, I've been producing a weekly podcast for a while now and kept hearing it only takes an hour line. I don't think that's true. Maybe if it's a 5-minute podcast, decided to actually log it for a month down to the minute. Good for you. Here's what a single episode looked like on average. Research and reading source material, 90 minutes. Outlining and writing the script, 60 minutes. We're going to come back to that in a second. Recording, 35 minutes. Editing, removing ums, fixing levels, cutting dead air, 2.5 hours. Now, he doesn't say how long this episode is. He recorded for 35 minutes, so I'm thinking it's 35 minutes-ish. Writing show notes, episode description, metadata, 30 minutes. Okay. And then uploading, scheduling, tagging, 20 minutes. Creating social clips and post to promote, 45 minutes. That's roughly 6.5 hours for one episode. He goes, that was eye-opening. The recording was maybe 10% of the total time. The biggest time sinks were editing and promotion, neither of which are the part I'm actually good at or enjoy. Since then, I've been experimenting with ways to cut the production overhead without killing quality. Some things that help: description for editing, notebook LM for prep. That's okay. Batching research for multiple episodes, sure. Using templates for show notes, sure. So I'm not writing from scratch and being more aggressive about cutting scope, fewer segments, tighter episodes. But here's the one that made me confused, is he said, I took an hour to outline and write the script. Okay, that's, you do you. But then he spent 2.5 hours removing ums, fixing levels, and cutting dead air time. And I'm like, wait, why do you have ums if you wrote a script? That was the one. And then the fact that fixing levels, as we were talking, I set the levels here on my Rodecaster. And also, hello, Auphonic. There's all sorts of ways you can fix the levels that don't take 2.5 hours. And then dead air. And I'm like, you have a script in front of you. Why is there, 2.5 hours on fixing ums, adjusting the levels, and cutting dead air? He also doesn't say if this is a solo show, if it's two people, whatever. But to me, when I see 2.5 hours for just editing out ums, fixing levels, and cutting dead air, I was like, I think he's over editing. I know people that cut out every breath, every blank, like he said, dead air. Like, let's make some dead air. You ready? There you go. That was some dead air. But, people sometimes have to pause on what they're going to say next. I don't know. Jim, when you do your show, you're doing interviews. Are you taking, Chris from castahead.net, 2.5 hours. Yeah, it comes down to your process and how much you're willing to allow to be good enough to move on. The more you record, the better you can be at delivering an unedited content. So how do you handle editing, or do you do any editing, or?
Well, to this individual and to all of us, I would say you have your own individual presentation style that you
right.
And you may be in a situation where scripting is actually hurting you, not helping you. It's not speeding things up. We're all not good at reading things. We're all not good at, that script may be getting in the way of creativity. It may be getting in the way of having to go back. I didn't read that right. This is, and Dave, this could be the problem. You read a sentence and you're like, oh no, I didn't want that exactly that way. So you say it again, and then you say it again. And then, okay, so you're creating this bit, in having a script and wanting it to be exactly the way you want it. And then your talent may not be there to be able to read those perfectly. So you're creating 3 or 4 versions of every sentence. Well, heck yeah, that's going to take a while to record, and that's going to take a while to edit. You might be better just going off script or having notes, having bullet points that you come to. It just kind of depends on you. And then I think we absolutely have to get to the point where you figure out your own rhythm, your own process, the way you do things, the way it works for you. And this gets better with practice, right? The more you do it, the better you get, the more it gets better for you. So, we're one take wonders. I try not to. I needed a Thursday night's episode. We had a section where Paul's video was rough and we had to reset some stuff. And so I took all that out. Right. But the rest of it, for the most part, I'm going to keep in. But I also have guests that are pretty good. Right. And I've been doing this for 10 years. And so I don't create a lot of mistakes that I worry that much about. Do I create mistakes? Absolutely. Do I create mistakes that I worry about from a content perspective? No. Now, does that hold me back? Maybe. I mean, maybe the fact that I don't have the most professional edits in what I do, maybe it means I don't get as many downloads, but those are the choices I make.
Yeah, John says podcasting like great food. It takes time. As for editing, I listen to every word and cut every breath. And a 35 finished edit could be an hour of raw audio. Yeah, what I do when I edit somebody else's stuff, and I don't do a lot of that, but I listened where someone said something. They said something like this. So where like I can actually cut out the first time they said that and leave the second one. So I will go in, I can see the WAV file, I highlight it, I press delete, I go back, I hit play. Does it sound like I edited it? No, that sounds perfectly natural. Moving on at 1.8 speed. But that actually then drives up their bill because I have to listen to the whole thing. I use Resound.fm, which all it looks for is ums and extra long spaces. And I will go through an hour-long file in about 10 minutes because it's just, I can now recognize what an looks like. So I go next and I go cut, next, cut, next, cut. And then I'll see this big old space and I'll listen to what they said. And if it's just, I don't know, they're trying to figure out what the next question is, I might cut that in half. I don't cut out all the spaces because my last episode, speaking of editing, I did it narrative style. So I had talked to Jana Marie from Big Lash Energy, and we talked for like 2 hours. She was just a lot of fun to talk to, and I was like, okay, I can't put out I was going to either do 2 episodes, and what I did was I listened to each of her answers and just cut them up and then labeled them, and then I loved it. It was like the most creative thing of like, okay, I have all these ingredients. How do I want to put this together? So I was like, well, let's have her talk about how she makes her episode, and then let's talk about how she edits her show and some other fun things along the way. But that took like, I don't know, probably 3 hours just to do that part, to cut them up and then have me be the little bridge that connects them together. Now, on the other hand, I had people contact me and say, that was like your best episode ever. And I was like, every time I do a narrative style, I get more feedback than I do when I do a regular show. So it definitely creates a better product. I just don't have 3 hours every week to edit a show. So Ralph says, I think you can over edit and drive yourself crazy. Yep. And guess what that is? How people speak. Yep. We're networks. But what I had done, and it dawned on me, is I was saying something like, and Jana didn't realize that this was going to happen. And she would come in like right there. And what I was doing in many cases is we're both talkers. And her point was made as she was going into the next word. And it's hard to cut that off without just making it sound like it's not natural, the voice inflection. So what I was doing was I was fading out her next word that I didn't need. And I would put me over top of it to kind of hide the fact that this is a bad edit. But in doing that, it was just bam, 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 bam. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to leave the bad edit in, and I'm just going to put a little space for people's brains to absorb what the heck I was saying. Because if it never stops, especially if you said something really good, I was like, I need a space there for people to go, huh, yeah, I never thought of it that way. And so, yeah, John says, I can't edit anything but at 1.0 speed. Yeah, I depends on what I'm doing. But I usually listen to it before I upload it, and when I listen to it, depending on the time I have and what I'm listening for. If I'm listening for pacing and stuff, definitely 1.0.
Dave, I find in the edit process, so we have this big conference that we're doing next week, and I recorded 11 spotlights. So 11 people. I needed 1 to 2 minutes of their best content, right? So we sent them emails and then scheduled the time. Then we jumped on StreamYard, and I'd record anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes of content from them. And then I'd edit those down to the best 1 minute, right? And I tell you what, just having those 11 after I recorded them hanging over my head for like was like, oh gosh, that's 11, that's 11 edits that I need to go in there and re-listen to them again, find the best one.
Yeah.
I could have taken better notes. I think some of the key is take good notes while you're doing it. Like, oh no, at this minute
Yeah.
mark, this is the best one right in the moment. Although sometimes going back after the fact, you have better context if you go back and listen with a fresh ear. One of the things I have found, and I think as podcasters, we think we have to sit down and do all of this at one time. Like, oh no,
Right.
no, I need it's going to 6 hours. I got to knock this thing out. And over the course of the weekend, I did this over the weekend because it was just more convenient, just little bits. So I'd be like, okay, I'm going to download them all and gather them in files and organize them, and then I'm going to walk away. Then I'm going to come back and I'm going to commit to getting 3 done. I'm just going to do 3. And for some of you, you just need to commit to 1 at a time. I'll just do 1, then I'm going to walk away. I'm going to do 1 and then walk away. If that's, my situation might be unique, but you know what I'm talking about, right? You've got these complicated processes you've come up with, and you think you got to edit, produce, pimp, schedule, write, socialize, the whole thing all at once. What's wrong with putting your episode out and then maybe a day or 2 later doing some social around it, right? There's no, it
Right.
doesn't all have to be done at the same time. You can break that stuff up. Many of you do. I know in the chat room, I'm like, I break it up. You do your own way. I just think for me, sometimes I overwhelm myself by thinking, oh, I got 5 hours of work to do to get this kind of thing done. I split my process up, record it on Thursday and download it. Friday, I do all the edits and the recordings, dump them into AI. So on Saturday morning, they're all ready. They're all processed. Everything's ready to go. Build the show notes, drop it, produce it, get it done, promote it. So I split mine across 3 days. Maybe thinking about your process not being all in one day or sitting might be something that helps you break it up.
Yeah, the thing that got me, and I was like, oh, this is where people freak out, is I started it on Wednesday, and then I remember did some on Friday, and then I actually did some on Sunday, right before I was getting ready to post it. Like, I realized I didn't say her website when I kind of introduced her. And if you go back and listen now that I've told you, you'll hear me say, and her website is big-podcast.com. And if you listen to it, the tone of it is a little different because most of it was recorded in the evening. That was recorded about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Plus, I was still kind of working on a cold. And for me, it was insanely different, right? Because it wasn't quite as bassy and blah, blah, and I was like, it's 6 words out of, however many thousand words there were. I'm like, no. And if they notice it, by the time they go, hey, that sounded different, it's on to something. We're back to how it originally sounded. And that's the thing I think people sometimes kind of freak out on. If we go to, let's see, Ivan, what editing software do you recommend? I've used GarageBand and I think it's fine, but I've heard people use Audacity or Adobe Audition. I'm not sure what software is the best. The one that you like and use is the best one. Jim, I think you use Audacity, right?
No, well, not anymore. I used to use Audacity a lot. I'm using Auphonic, and then I'm just dropping that into. Well, actually, before I use Auphonic, I drop it into iMovie and do the edits that I need that way. Export it out. I've got to say this, Dave. This week, I don't know why it's taken me so long, but I was at work. I have another editor that helps me do some of the stuff that we do, and in Auphonic, he has been using that filter that's like partial deverb. Right. Okay. It's kind of designed for somebody where they're in a room and you're getting that reverb in that room noise from it. And I was like, I hadn't seen that before. And I was like, I'm going to try that. This Thursday, my guest was in a room and it was sounded fairly roomy. And I thought, well, I'm going to try that filter. OMG. Right. Oh my God. I'm like, how I should be running this filter every time I do that. And I thought, why have I not been doing this? The audio his audio pre was so roomy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was just tinny and roomy. I ran it through that filter on the back side, and it's almost like it fixed it with AI. I mean, it did, but let's just say, it was amazing. So I like for the processing, and this is what I use. There's all of them can do this. But Auphonic, I had that moment this week where I was like, why? I could have had a V8.
Yeah, I use on this show, I use, it's a plugin from a company called Accentize, and they have a D room. And I just ever so slightly turn it on because I'm not as close to the microphone as I normally am. And again, totally, this is like 200% listening through the ears of a podcaster, but it takes, I'm like, there is a little room in there. And so, there are plugins that'll do this. It's, but I use Hindenburg. And the reason because when I first got on a Mac, I was like, I'm going to use GarageBand because it's so pretty. I mean, it's a very pretty, software. And then I saw where if I wanted to cut out an I had to go split, delete, move over. And I went, wait, there's got to be, I can't just highlight and press delete. And unless they've changed that was, 10 years ago. That was a deal breaker because in Audacity, if you want to go with free software, you highlight and you press delete. I use Hindenburg because you can make kind of presets, and I have like all the jingles I use a lot. Like I have one called Transitional Whoosh. I have a school bell sound. And when I open up, all those sounds are there and I can just drag them in. They have this little kind of, they call it the clipboard. And it's just super easy. My favorite one is, I think it's like Control Shift Alt or whatever. And it highlights everything from this point to the end. So when you need to insert a 5-second jingle or something, you just Control Shift Right, drag everything over 5 seconds, put in your jingle, drag it. It's a really cool, and I think it's, I don't know, $12 a month, something like that. So it's not free, but I'm a big fan of Hindenburg. John says, used to take me up to 5 hours to edit the feed. That's a 78 minutes of raw audio. 2 Hall of Famers, Rob and Elsie. I can't wait for In and Around Podcasting to come back, he says. But when I was done, the show sounded good. I got to be on the feed, and it was pretty scripted. Like, they knew exactly what was coming then and there, and Rob would actually occasionally, like, write in an so he didn't sound so scripted. Here, I'm peeling back the curtains. And he said the finished product would be about 65 minutes. So, yeah. Let's see here. The best audio editing software is the one that you know the best. Yep. Yeah. Go ahead, Jim.
I edited for some lawyers who were doing a podcast. It wasn't on legal stuff, but it was on higher ed stuff. And they wanted it clean. They did not want the ums. They weren't necessarily professional media folks. And they weren't bad. They got better as they went. But yeah, it was, I would take, I'd probably take 90 minutes of content and bring it down to about 60. You can cut a lot out. We'd actually go 2 rounds of editing. So I'd get it down to kind of a manageable mistakes, spaces, whatever, those kinds of things. And then I would send it back to them. Then they would do content edit. Say, no, take these kinds of things out, edit here, that kind of stuff. You mentioned, Dave, a few minutes ago of making an edit. Sometimes we try to make an edit and the tone of our sentence doesn't line up with what we want the edit to be. Yeah. And I hear the Wall Street Journal. I listen to the Wall Street Journal podcast on a daily basis. They do 2. They're 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the afternoon. So they're cranking these out. But when they have a guest on, they often just whack it, and you can tell like it was right in the middle of a thought. But they have a very strict time that they're holding to, right? And so they just cut it, and at the end they're like, "Hey, thanks for coming. Thanks for having me." The person says, but you can definitely tell they are making some hard edits in there, and sometimes you just have to do that.
Yeah, Chris says sometimes we over edit, but the audience doesn't care as much as we think they do. No, I'm true. Yeah, true. And it's true. Once you start editing, everything you listen to is through the ears of a podcaster. I know there are many times I've been in church going, "Is there a 1.5 speed on the
So, could you speed that up a little bit?
Is there a 30-second skip here? Can we get to the
wrap it up? Wrap it up, Pastor. Pastor, wrap it up.
Uncle Marv has a question. If someone doesn't edit at all, what is that called? See, my knee-jerk reaction sounds mean, and I would say lazy. But sometimes they're busy.
One take wonder is what I call it. A one take wonder.
A one take wonder. That's it. Daniel J. Lewis from the Audacity to Podcast. I think over editing is when you can tell it was heavily edited, and that gets really frustrating to hear. That's how a lot of shorts get edited. Yeah, when you just hear, like you said, things getting cut off in the middle, when there's no breathing, everything is just next, and I'm like, and then again, it doesn't give your brain a break. Uncle Marv dusting it off. And this is still around because I heard Rob talk about how if you listen to Rob's process on Podcast 411, I'm like, that sounds a little excessive.
He's soldering the computer together while he's doing it. He's like,
Yes.
okay, well, I took this, I soldered the computer together. Yeah.
Should have said that I used the old Levelator program first. Then I use Adobe with voice at 0 setting, music at 80 background. Yeah, there's a thing if you pay for the Adobe enhanced product, you can say, reduce the music by this much, reduce this. Well, that's weird. My Zoom meeting just quit itself. I guess because there weren't any participants. So Randy, I saw Randy in the chat room. Randy, if you're coming in, call me is turned on today. Daniel says, I think over editing. Did I already say this? Yes, I already said that one. Yeah, it seems like
it's jump. You get jump edits. It's like, we jump videos are super popular, but on the audio content side, if your edits are that short, your brain doesn't have time to process it. As you're used to hearing things. Now, if you speed up your audio often, those jump edits may actually make sense to you. Or if you speed up your audio and they're making jump edits, that could be really, really frustrating too. So it kind of depends on what you listen to.
And Randy, I'll turn up your fader here in a second. The thing I just heard is with this new HLS video, it's coming, that if you switch to audio, it's not switching to your MP3 file that you have if you're doing both. It's pulling the audio from the video. And I was like, that's a bummer because often the audio is edited better than the video because unless you're, 19, jump cuts don't go over well. And they're very noticeable. And I was like, well, that's not what I want. I did figure out why HLS is very popular because I was like, who wants this? And the answer is advertisers. I was listening to, I think it was the Media Roundtable, and they interviewed somebody from some, insert big name for advertising here. And she was like, oh, I'm very excited to see if, how this is going to get used. And I was like, oh, there we go. Another great, big change in podcasting based on the audience? No. Based on the podcasters? No. Based on advertisers. And I'm like, well,
sometimes that's how things get done. Listen, if Apple hadn't jumped it's in the early days and made this legit, we could still be hand coding RSS feeds. I don't know if podcasting would have survived as long as it has if they hadn't jumped in and made it legit. Boy, there's a hot take. So let me drop the bomb on that one. Hey, Randy, come on in.
There you go. Yes, Mr. Randy Black. Here's the thing. I have a Rodecaster Duo, and I just happen to be kind of putzing around with it. And I saw where it said, hey, an upgrade is available. And I was like, oh, I wonder what's in that. And I had a link to Rode's website, and I can't find it now. But Randy, how are you, buddy?
I am great. How are you doing this morning, guys?
We're doing good, man. But you had contacted me on Facebook and said, "Oh man, have you seen the new update? It's amazing. It slices, it dices, it even juliennes."
Well, it's pretty close. What they've done, and some of it hasn't been fully documented by Rode yet. Like I did some playing around and figured out a couple things. What they've done is actually created more parity between the Duo and the Pro 2. With the firmware upgrade, when you look at the Duo, you've got 4 physical faders, 3 virtual ones. You now have 5 virtual faders. So you have a total of 9 channels, just like the Pro 2. So they're on an even playing field with that. They also completely changed the multi-track output. The multi-track output was designed for specific channels. So your Bluetooth, your XLRs, all those were specifically assigned to pairs or individual channels in the multi-track output. That is no longer the case. The way the multi-track output now works is there are 20 channels of multi-track output. 1 and 2 together are your stereo mix. As you then go down the list, 3, 4 is fader 1, 5, 6 is fader 2, all the way down the list until you hit your virtual. So, on the Duo, channels 11 and 12 would be your first virtual fader. On the Pro 2, channels 15 and 16 are your first virtual fader. So what you can then do, and I tested it in GarageBand, you can assign anything to any fader and it takes over that multi-track output. That includes the virtual devices that you could not record through multi-track. You only got them on the stereo. And Call Me can now be recorded as individual tracks into a DAW over the multi-track instead of having to record it on the device.
Got it. So you can basically, it sounds like a big router. Basically, you can.
Yes, it has turned into a real, true mixer with multi-track output instead of it being locked down the way it was. I've played around with it for the past day or so after I've got home from a conference, and it's pretty slick and it's working great. I thought that might be something some other people might be interested in hearing about. And if anybody wants the channel mapping, I can if they find me on Facebook, send me a message. I can send them an image file that has those channel maps. It's also been posted in a couple of the Rodecaster groups out on Facebook.
All right.
So if you need to see what those are before Rode gets their documentation done, which for whatever reason they haven't, but I have that. Even reached out to a gentleman out in Indiana, Andy Lehman. Andy is the guy that taught me how to use the virtual devices using Loopback before Rode had the software for Mac OS. So I sent that to him, and he's like, man, we keep figuring this stuff out before they even document it. We might as well take their jobs. So we'll see what happens with that. But I just thought there's something quick I found and wanted to share, because I know there's some couple other people who watch the show, and even you who host the show using a Rodecaster, that this might be beneficial for, and thought I'd throw it out there for everybody. And like I said, if anybody needs anything with it, just give me a shout and I can send it over to you. And if you need any help, just send me a message. Like you can ask Ralph. I've been on calls with Ralph trying to help him get his Rodecaster situation lined out at times with some different things he was having issues with, and I'm glad to help anybody with it.
Yeah, that's because obviously you're going to get those tracks right individually in on your SD card, but if you wanted a backup and you wanted to send it into Hindenburg or GarageBand or whatever you're using.
Yeah, I did when I recorded something this morning with GarageBand. It's exactly what I did. I had it recording on the device and in the DAW.
Yeah.
Randy, what's the update number?
1.7.3.
Yeah, it's if you go to Rode, well, actually, if you just go into your Rodecaster and say, hey, check for an update or what. Like when I go into settings, it goes, hey, there's a firmware update, and I was like, not before I go live on a Saturday morning, but I'll do it when we get done here. But yeah, there's a thing. It came out March 11th, and 3 improvements and a new feature. Yeah. So
I see Uncle Marv asked a question there in the chat about the update, because he says he didn't see those. If you've done the update and you've not updated the drivers, you may not see them correctly. So I always go pull the drivers and pull the Rodecaster app and get those updated at the same time, and you should start to see them. Nice.
Very cool. Well, thanks for the update, my friend.
No problem. Before we leave, I got to play it for Jim.
Pinky, you're so crazy. And where can we find your stuff?
The best place is just go to randallblack.com. From there, it links out to the different podcasts and things I'm doing. And I also got my blog running there with stuff that, like I said, occasionally something just hits me and I have to share. So I'll either write it up in a blog or I'll record a podcast and stick it out there.
Excellent. All right, my friend. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks, Randy.
Thanks, Dave.
Yep, we'll see you. Chris has some fun news. He says, I've been invited to a big car event at Willow Springs as the official podcast for the event. I need to figure out how to pull this off. My friend, that is called Glenn the Geeking It. The beautiful thing is about that is what you can do is get yourself a table and maybe some sort of, tablecloth over it, whatever. Get yourself a mic, and if you can, get what I call a clown nose. Those foam things that go over the end of the microphone that matches your artwork. Like Glenn did this when he's still on the Horse Radio Network. Let me see if I can find this. And he went to, let me go Horse Radio Network on a Google image search. But he had this table just had a microphone, wasn't recording anything. He did have a backdrop that said Horse Radio Network, and it just looked like something was happening at the booth. And so if you're at a car event, have either a QR code or a business card with a QR code so that you can point people right at, Jim, what would you point people at? Your website or the page where you have your Apple, Spotify, like where they could just follow the show?
Website. And then I'd make the website have a page that had all that stuff.
Is that, yeah.
On it, yeah.
Yeah, I can't, when I Googled Horse Radio Network, I didn't see any
I tell you what,
pictures.
I used to do these twice a year, these on-premise events where we were the official podcast of this conference. These tech conferences that eventually got purchased by the same organization. And so we just lather, rinse, repeat for the last couple of years. But where we'd step in, they'd give us a table up front. We kind of became the official podcast for the event. We did live. Then I got the speakers. One year I got the keynote speaker. One year our keynote speaker was the CIO for the Obama administration. And so I got to interview her, which was super cool. But you get some interesting interviews. I found folks for my tech podcast through that. But it was an easy table setup. I just used ATR 2100s and I put in earbuds. I didn't require that they did because they could hear me across, we're sitting across the table. So I had earbuds in, didn't require they do it. I put these mics on stands and I think I ran it through a little mixer in those days, maybe we had to get it done. You could do it through any audio device running it into a laptop. So you can take today, man, that is so much easier today than it used to be. And you could even get a little tiny battery. You get one of those, EcoFlow River 3s, or you could get a Jackery or any of those, right, to take with you. And you don't even have to worry about, because, some of those conferences, power is a little sketchy, right? You're like, hey, can you run power out to my table? And they're like, no, we don't have that. Or in some conferences, that'll be $1,000. And you're like, because they got to get a union laborer to, run an extension cord.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Apparently takes real skill, right, to get that done. So one of those backup batteries may be a handy thing to have, sitting at the table.
If you could use, this is where, I've got a pair of Hollyland Lark M2. It's the longest name, but you can basically, get yourself a pair of lavs if you wanted to do some recording at the show. But the thing that Glenn did is I don't know that this is it's a car show. So I don't think there's anybody speaking there. It's just people going, oh man, check out that vet. But if there are speakers there, get to know the speakers. And then if there are other people there that would make really good sponsors for your show, go make friends with those people. Because Glenn, I think, still has people that sponsor his show from like the very first show he did. And I think this is a screenshot of, because you see he doesn't have a Horse Radio Network background, but you can see he's got the little red thing that matches his Horse Radio Network little thing on his pocket there. So he's got all the branding down, but he just went in and by meeting all the speakers at this horse event, he grew his network, and then he went to all the sponsors that were sponsoring the event, and they went, what is your radio thing again called? And got it in. So, but just... Right, I would just, you are where your target audience is, right? You're looking for card people. So have QR codes, business cards. Business cards are so cheap now. I was like, holy cow. And I use Canva. I was really surprised at how well they did with that. So, it's that's really cool. I saw somebody else had a question.
Well, Uncle Marv in chat said power to the table, right? But what about Wi-Fi? This is an area at these conferences that's gotten infinitely easier and better. Like I remember in the early days, we'd have them run a cable. Like I had to pay extra, like $400 or $500 to get them to run a cable out to the table. I'm like, no, I need network. I need a network connection. I can't be using your Wi-Fi because conference Wi-Fi used to just be terrible, right? You get all these people in there.
It is so bad.
Laptops connected.
Yeah,
it has gotten better. Like and even to the point now where I would use my phone as a hotspot, and it would work great. Like in a lot of cases, my phone I can get probably 100 down and 50 up in most, and even in bad situations. And that's enough, right, for what you're doing there. And then if you're recording locally, like if you're using a StreamYard or if you're using, fill in the blank, you could also be recording that all locally. So even if the Wi-Fi is bad, if you're doing it live for whatever reason, which I'd encourage you to do it live if you can. You won't get a ton of listeners, but try. And then the recording, you can record it local. Doesn't matter which bandwidth is. That at that point, it's going to pick up the best of everything that was there. So, that part, it's not perfect, but it's gotten better. The Wi-Fi, the network connectivity has gotten better. And then Mark says car battery under the table. I wouldn't use a lead acid car battery, Fred.
Have fun dragging that into the conference.
There's so many great lithium ion products now, like I mentioned, with the Jackeries and such. You can pay a little bit more for them, but they're so much better and cleaner power. This is important. You don't want a battery that's going to make interference in with some of the audio that you're making. And a lot of these lithium ion batteries they test very well for that kind of interference.
Yeah. The other thing I bring is if I'm doing a booth, I'll have like 2 or 3 power bricks to power the laptop. Luckily, my laptop's, I don't know, a couple years old, and it lasts a long time because usually booth time is like 4 hours. It's not like you're there from 8 to 5. But so that's keeping the laptop. And then if nobody's there, I just, I close it and it goes into not completely shut down, but paused or whatever. And then the problem with an iPhone is that if I'm using it to power my Wi-Fi, right, if I'm using it as a hotspot, I can't charge it and use it as a hotspot. So if I were to do this again, I might get one of those where it's a charging station that you just sit the phone on to charge it. So I could have a power brick with 2 outputs, one to the laptop and one to the phone to keep the phone charged because the phone is powering the Wi-Fi, that whole 9 yards. So it's kind of a problem. So
I have one of those batteries that's got that phone charger on top. So the Blue Eddy AC180, you could, Dave, in your case, you could have the battery. You could put your phone on top of it. It would be charging your phone, and you could plug into it for the hotspot. So
cool. Randy says, just came home from a conference. One of the sponsors was a network hardware vendor. Nice. They provided Wi-Fi for the whole thing. I've had that happen, not a lot, but I remember when I went to the Ecamm event, they had a Wi-Fi person there. Uncle Marv says I don't do the hotspot, but I'm a tech and I have friends helping build a portable travel router with 100 megabyte 5 gig. Nice.
Nice.
Yeah, that's what I could connect the phone to the laptop that's true. I never thought about that. If I plug my phone into it to be a hotspot, in theory, the laptop is probably charging my phone. Somebody's charges. Yeah. So,
sure.
But that's fun. Are we, I don't know, Jim, how, is it time to, if I say the word open claw, do I need to hit the jingle?
Yeah. No,
and now, he's been waiting for this. It's time for
Let me
Jim
find
to
the
get
question
his nerd
here.
on.
Daniel J. Lewis just did a deep dive into this, which was so good. I was like, oh, this is so Daniel. It's nerdy and specific and lots of details. It was a really good episode because it really let me know I don't want anything. I don't want any part of this right now. Is anyone using OpenClaw type programs? If yes, how are you using it for your podcast? Because I heard Adam Curry say he was talking about using it because OpenClaw is this AI thing and you can have it do stuff for you. And Adam was like, yeah, it can do the stuff. And then it dawned on him that anything that it could do, he's like, why am I having it do this? So I was like, I think that's the question is, what do you want it to do? But Jim, have you played with OpenClaw yet?
Yeah, I've looked at it. It's kind of a nice integration, or I've been working with LM Studio as well as Olama that get you both localized LLMs, so you can do your AI stuff locally if you want to. The OpenClaw kind of takes it one step farther a little bit, and it gives you some local productivity stuff that it can do. Dig in a little bit if you're interested in your own. They've got some great examples on the website. The beauty of it too is that it's running locally. Now, Be careful of what you wish for, friends.
Yeah.
So these programs, in the tech space, we have gone back and forth between what I'm going to call client and server, right? Where in the early days before the internet, everything was client, right? That's your PC. That's you being
Right.
before we connected to the internet, right? When you connected to the internet, that became the server aspect of this. And since the time of the internets, we have gone back and forth on where the processing happens for some of the things that we do. We figure out how to make them work on a server, and then all of a sudden that takes too many resources. So the server friends say, hey, we should push these out to the clients or the endpoints and get them to do the processing. Or the endpoints start to say, hey, for security reasons, I really don't want my information on a public server of sorts. Those things can get hacked and such. So I want my own client version of this. And we've gone back in the various over the years, we've gone back and forth on this. We're in an iteration now with the AI where a lot of folks are saying, hey, I want my own private AI. So let's do most of the processing at the endpoint. You got to have pretty significant gear to do anything significant if you're going to do these endpoint processings with LLMs, right? And they all vary and they're all different. We're getting more and more. This was the when the I'm struggling to remember the name of the Chinese LLM that came out. That that one. Everybody's shouting at me live. They're like, Jim, it's this. It's right there, and it won't come to me. Doesn't matter. The LLMs will get better and more efficient, but then of course, DeepSeek. Thank you. Yeah, DeepSeek was what it was. Kind of rock the AI world. Smaller, more efficient. We're gonna get better at this, friends. I mean, we're gonna get better, but at the end of the day, we want these things to be super smart, and they're going to take up giant amounts of resources. And you're pushing a lot of that. You're not building the LLM, but you're pushing a lot of that processing use that it's going to do onto you. So just eyes wide open, friends. This isn't free. You can download these open source versions. By the way, they're never the most current ones. So you're not, in a lot of cases, you're not running the most current. But just realize you now are becoming, you're taking on the processing.
Right.
And it's going to run on your computer, and it's not going to run, in a lot of cases, it won't run as fast as to the cloud. So if you have a 10-year-old laptop and you're trying to run some of these things, or you got a 10-year-old Mac and you're like, oh yeah, bring this stuff down.
Yeah.
Probably not. No, probably not. But if you're in the newest realm of things and you got lots of memory and you want to burn some watts, it's not terrible. It's not like you're processing the LLMs. But just eyes wide open, friends. These aren't. Yes, they're free. Yes, they're open source. But yes, you're pushing the processing to you for the work.
Yeah, the Audacity to Podcast, again, Daniel show. If you go over there, it's titled "Should I Try OpenClaw in Podcasting?" And another thing I found interesting, there's a guy, he normally talks about music or the music business. His name's Rick Beato, and he did a video called How AI Will Fail Like the Music Industry. And he kind of talks about what you were talking about, Jim, the fact that he goes, it used to be you spent, hundreds of dollars an hour to use a professional music studio. He goes, because they had all this gear. And he goes, and then he said, he actually has the very first interface he had in an old Mac. He goes, and then, I got this stuff. And he goes, I could plug a microphone and it would go directly into my computer. And I could use, I forget the other version of, not GarageBand, but it's the next version from Apple up. I forget what it's called. But basically he was using that. Could have been Pro Tools as well. And he said what was interesting is then Pro Tools moved into the studios. So they still had all the, the big ooh-ah-ah stuff, but they were also using Pro Tools. He goes, and they would charge you $500 for a guy there to be the Pro Tools guy. He goes, except I knew as much as he did, if not more. And he goes, and eventually he goes, nobody in the music business now, he goes, studios are hurting because everybody records everything at home. And he said, so it's not going to be anytime soon. He goes, but they're spending trillions of dollars on these data centers. And he goes, and it may be by the time software gets ready to actually use that power, people will go, I'm just going to, spend extra money on a super beefy computer and do it from home. And I was like, I've heard Adam Curry's not a big, it's funny. On one hand, he'll kind of bash AI and call it slop and this and that, but he's also vibe coding, and he's also now saying he's going to try to run a local copy of it. He's like, because it just, you end up spending, he said I was spending like $50 an hour because he was, just dabbling and trying this and that. And he goes, all of a sudden you look up and you go, wait, whoa, hold on a second. And I was like, well, maybe that might be something where the other thing that worries me is Podpage did a town hall, and Brendan, the lead developer and founder, was talking about some really cool stuff we could do with AI, where it could do your show notes for you and all sorts of really cool stuff using AI. And I'm like, okay. Also, keep in mind that AI stands for always increases your bill. And I was like, and even if it doesn't, let's say we all tie into these data centers and then they decide, hey, you know what? Let's raise our prices. And what are we going to do? Go to another data center? I guess maybe. I mean, I know we do that with bandwidth, but I was like,
that's never been done in the history of technology.
No,
it's not like, remember when Netflix was like $4? It's $24 now.
I remember when I used to ship DVDs back and forth.
Yeah, no, I mean, friends, the days like we're in the golden age of AI. You should be, if you have a $20 plan for OpenAI or for ChatGPT, if you've got a static plan right now, you should be using that as much as humanly possible to get as much productivity done. It's not going to stay that way, right? We're already starting to see, like, we got an enterprise version of Claude just recently, and I saw behind the scenes I have a meter that's tracking like, hey, for this month you have $200 worth of use, and and I have a meter that resets in April. And I thought, oh, here's the future of AI, where we're going to build all these processes, we're going to get dependent on it, and then they're going to start saying, well, that's the old model. If you want to use the new model, you're going to have to convert. Because, like, friends, this happened in podcasting, right? We had these plans, these pretty reasonable plans, and then all the podcasting platforms were like, well, if you want AI in your stuff, you have to have this, and if you want more bandwidth, you have to, right? So, friends, don't be silly. Like, we know this is coming, and so get ready.
Right.
Don't, just know the bills are coming. Use it today. It's fairly inexpensive. They're losing money like crazy.
Yeah, they are.
This is not going to be. This is not the future. This is so. This does play into the local versions of things, right? Again, like this OpenClaw, you might want to do that as well. But in the future, you're going to have to feed those local AIs something, and they may not always be open, and they may not always be free. So just eyes wide open, friends. This is coming. Well, we've seen this. We've gone to this movie before. This is nothing new.
And one of the things I forgot to ask last week, I went to the internet and I said, give me an image of Jim Cullison. And there was an old picture I used of you.
It's pretty good.
And pretty good. I went through and I was like, I should probably ask Jim, can I use your likeness? Because we were talking about, we're going to end up podcasting from a lazy boy. You got a lazy boy. I still am in my office chair. But I was like, well, that was interesting. And then I did a different one for a square version. And now he's chicken back. Plus, we got the dad bod going. I'm like, excellent. And I was surprised it went with the, I think that is a new version. It's not a duo, but I was like, the fact that it's got a Rodecaster, it's got something back here, a bunch of cables just sitting here doing nothing. But I was like, that's not bad. And I was like, I should probably ask Jim if it's okay if I use his likeness.
I saw those. They're pretty good. I knew it was AI. I would never tuck my shirt in that scenario. Right. So that shirt would not be tucked in. The AI thought it should be tucked in. I would not tuck it in because, I'm a 50s guy. Like, you leave the shirt out. That's how you cover the dad bod. You're right, exactly. And I laughed. I tried that
when Glenn filled in the 1 week, and I had an old picture of me and Glenn standing in his office from 15 years ago, and we were both, well, Glenn's in great shape. I am not. And it was like, oh, I remember when I looked like that. And that's what the AI did, because that's what I fed it. And I was like, I just need to find a lot of old pictures and feed it that way. So, I thought that was, and I'm using Magai for that, because that has a bunch of tools in it. And one of them is Nana Banana, which is from Google something. So that's fun. But who also is fun, and you don't need to, you don't need to Photoshop. It's going to be weird, because it used to be, oh, that's Photoshopped, and now we're just, Photoshop is going to get replaced with, that's just AI. It's like, so is our awesome supporters, and you can be an awesome supporter by going to askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome, and you could be like let's see here, fightingthroughpodcast.co.uk, the Flame Alive Pod, Content Creators Accountant, voiceovers and vocals, Yep, as in YEP, Yep Podcast, all these awesome supporters. You could be part of them and be on our website. And I need to remind you that today, this show is brought to you by the School of Podcasting.com, where you get courses, coaching, and community. You can use the coupon code COACH, and remember, you can join worry-free with a 30-day money-back guarantee. And if you want to try Podpage, except that jumped the shark for some reason, where's my Podpage page? Okay, I guess it's the next one. If you need some honest feedback from about your show, check out podcasthotseat.com, where I go over an episode that you pick, as well as your website, and let you know what you're doing right, and maybe some things that might need a little bit of polish. There's the Podpage page. Say that 3 times fast. If you want to try Podpage, go over to trypodpage.com. We just released 6 new features, and we've got some big announcements coming very, very soon. So keep your ears peeled for Podpage news. And if you need more Jim Collison, and hey, who doesn't, just head on over to theaverageguy.tv and check out Home Gadget Geeks. That's always a fun show. And it's time for the Wheel of Names. Who will it be? Will it be the ladies from Flame Alive Pod? Will it be Chris from castahead.net? Will it be Ralph from the Content Creators Accountant? John Moots, Ed Sullivan. I couldn't remember Ed's last name, from Sonic Cupcake. Well, we're going to spin the wheel and find out. And the winner is the one and only Ralph Estep Jr., who is also I was going to say supreme leader of the Empowered Podcasting Conference 3, but I don't think supreme leader is the title. He's the lead sponsor. That's what it is. So if you want to hang with Ralph, and he does the Financially Confident Christian, he does the Content Creators Accountant, he does a bunch of stuff. If you want to find all of Ralph's stuff, instead of going to Financially Confident Christian, go to askralph.com. And you can find all of his stuff. And I was just looking, because I saw Mark was here in the chat room. If we go back to us for a quick second, Mark is the man behind the Empowered Podcasting Conference, one of the men behind it. August 21st to 23rd. Oh, I'm coming. Yeah, that's definitely one worth returning to. I am kind of missing being at Podcast Movement Evolutions, just because I've been to every single one, but I heard they're having fun in Austin, but if I had to do it again, I would have bought a ticket, because A, they were free, and B, is it really that hard to get a hotel in Austin during a South by Southwest? I know the answer is yes, but there's a part of me that's like, probably should have gone. I broke my streak. But anyway, does the show you're listening to right now, Ask the Podcast Coach, does that save you time? Does it save you money? Does it save you headaches? Does it keep you educated? Well, then you might want to give some of that value back and go to askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome. You can sign up for a one-time, if I say donation, Ralph's head is going to explode. If you want to tip us, there we go. A one-time tip, you could do that. All at askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome. Let's see, where are my next little question? Oh, this kind of ties into what we were talking about earlier. This guy asked, eye contact with camera while reading part of a script. How do you do this? And he says, I've started a weekly athlete biography type podcast called The Discipline of Greatness. The Discipline of Greatness. And I like to script out a good portion of the show to keep me on track, because I have a tendency to ramble and get sidetracked. I've been recording video as well, but I can see my eyes moving side to side in the video, which bothers me. Now, one of the things you can do is move your teleprompter back if you have one. And he says, which bothers me, and I assume it will bother others. I don't know. I don't know. Again, this is watching through the eyes of a podcaster. I occasionally will kind of see, oh, they're reading from a teleprompter, or they're talking to the camera like this because the teleprompter is over there and they're looking off to the left. He says, I'm looking for recommendations on what others who use video and may read all or part of a script for their show do to maintain camera eye contact, and any help would be greatly appreciated. Well, number one, I've played with this a little bit. And if you never look away from the screen and you're always looking at it like I am now, it gets a little creepy, especially if you never blink, if you use that thing in the script that keeps the eyeballs going. But if you watch even the news when they're reading from a teleprompter, on occasion, they will occasionally kind of look away just for a second. So I think, again, we're probably not over editing, but over analyzing this. But who was I listening to? It was an actor, and they were talking about remembering lines and things like that. And they said just before the scene, they would read their lines top to bottom like 3 or 4 times out loud. They would read it, and then they would read it again, and they would then read it again, and then they would put the script down, and they would look at the camera, and they would and they said now sometimes the words weren't exactly right because they kind of paraphrased them into something they would say, which may not go over well if you're an actor. But I was like, that's not a bad idea to just read it out. And the problem is we're going to read it, and then when you do it like the second time, you're like, yeah. No. Read it out loud again, and then read it out loud again, and then put it down, and then just ask like, hey, somebody said you went to South by Southwest. What was it like? And then you go, well, I had this script. Okay, now just answer the question. I don't know. That's one of the things I don't worry about on this show. I mean, my eyes are all over the place on this show because I'm producing as I'm hosting. But Jim, do you ever worry about stuff like this?
I try not to. I've had some folks say to me, boy, it'd be on the podcast they make for work, it'd be great if you'd look at the camera a little bit more. And I'm like, well, sorry, not gonna. I'm just not gonna. It's just
right.
Not it's distracting to me. It slows me down. I start worrying about some of the things that I'm not as good. So it's kind of like, so what the method I've come up with is just squint a lot, and then they can't see your eyes. So that's what I'm going with. Just I'm going to stay squinty, and you can't see mine.
Forget what I was watching.
I know what I'm looking at. I know.
There was a guy. Well, you kind of look like De Niro. Like, hey, everybody, you talking to me? You talking to me? He's kind of squinty. There was a guy there was a whole thing on, I don't know why I watched it. It was on YouTube about did you ever watch the show Third Rock from the Sun?
Oh, yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
20 years ago, right? Yeah,
it was really popular. And they were saying how it was weird because John Lithgow was a serious actor. And he was like, I will never, TV show. And then they're like, comedy. And he was really good at it. And they were mentioning, and then you're like, Dave, why are we talking about Third Rock from the Sun? The actor French something was his first name was French. And he chose that his character would always be squinting. And so they said that was just a choice of his. It wasn't like a normal thing. He just was always squinting. And I'm like, well.
He was always squinting.
Yeah.
Now I remember that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just close your eyes a little bit. That way they can't see what you're looking at. You have no idea. I could be looking I'm completely off screen and you have no idea.
Yeah. So
there you go.
Here's a painful one. If you've ever gone into your Apple, Podcast Connect to look at your data and you see that it says not enough data, you're like, oh, I wonder how much data you have to have. And so I saw this on Reddit, and they actually quoted the Apple spec. If your show displays not enough data message in analytics, your show has not met the data threshold for the time frame specified. So number one, let's back off of that threshold. Instead of maybe last 7 days, let's go last 30 or for the month or something. It says at least 5 unique users must play content from your show within the selected time for the analytics metric you selected. So if you get that message, it means in the time you have specified, you've not had 5 download or 5 listeners in Apple Podcasts. And I was like, that's kind of painful now when you see that. You're like, wait, I don't have 5? Like, I got 8 people in my family. I don't have 5. And I was like, ow, that's kind of painful. So keep that in mind. We kind of talked about this last week. Jim, if you're going to go on a show, like somebody asks you to be on a show, how do you decide if you're going to go or not?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm gonna go look at their show. I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna sample it just to kind of see what they're talking about, what they do. I want to make sure I can bring value to what they're trying to do. I'll try to get like, is this a fit? Or is my style and their style kind of a fit? And then I'll make a decision. Like, okay, do I want to give up an hour or whatever, half an hour? A lot of folks won't go the full hour anymore. So yeah, I do a little bit of work before. I used to not do that. I used to just say yes because I was excited. That was a mistake. That was a big mistake. So I got on a few shows that I was like, I probably shouldn't be here. I probably should have listened to their style for 15 or 20 minutes before I jumped in.
Yeah, this guy says, I've been doing podcast outreach for a few months and I'm trying to get better at qualifying shows before I reach out. So he says, how recently have they published? Are they still active? That's a good thing. Episode count, established versus brand new. Not a bad thing. If they're on episode 3, you might think about it. Whether they've had guests before in my niche. Yeah, whether they've had guests, period. Like if it's obviously a solo show, you might want to not waste your time. He says, but I feel like I'm missing stuff. Do any of you look at per episode listener estimates? No, because they're all way off. Platform distribution. I look at who the host is, like the media host. Like if you're on Spotify and I'm on the fence, that's going to lean negative because I'm like, you got no skin in the game. You're not even paying for hosting. The biggest thing I look for me is not the podcast, but the audience. Does that audience want to hear my message? And if it's like, oh, yeah, we talk about whatever, and then you have to kind of think about why am I doing guesting? Is it to sell more books? Is it to do this? Is it to do that? And if you listen, and I think I mentioned this last week, if it's one of those shows where they talk about Jim's story in the early days in the Army, and then he moved to, blah, blah, but there's nothing about how great you are as, a podcast. You're like, okay, how am I going to sell a book? Because, I've got 6 kids, 5, 6, 5. Okay. 5. Well, go talk to your wife. She has a surprise for you.
I hope not.
Could you imagine that?
That would be a Festivus miracle right there.
But I look at, and this is just me. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I look at, their website. So if their website is the free Podbean website, that's kind of a negative. If I look at the host and they're on, something that looks cheapy, I'm looking just to like, hey, how serious are you taking the show? And then I listen to an episode, and if it starts off, and there wouldn't be anything wrong with it, but if their vibe isn't really my vibe, so if it starts off and it's like, hey, we're here, all right, it's, Binky and the Wiz, right? They're like, hey, we got Dave Jackson coming on today. I'm like, I'm not sure this is the, so I'm with you. I used to say yes all the time. I still kind of say yes because to me, the biggest takeaway is the relationship you make with people. But if they're on episode 2, they're using Spotify, they don't have a website, and if it's not a really great fit, I will probably just go, yeah, thank you, but no thank you. So, but that's it's one of those things where a website does make a difference, and I know you're like, oh, you say that because you're on Podpage, but it's yeah. I said that before it was on Podpage, so keep that in mind.
I'd make an exception in some cases. I did a podcast one time of a young podcaster who was just getting started. It was somewhere in their first 10 episodes, and they were just trying really hard. And I was like, you know what? If they think this is a big deal, then I will absolutely give them the time that they need to do it. It was, so I think you've got to make that evaluation. I don't say no if it's always just a startup or they have terrible technology. Maybe you can help them out with a little bit. If they, you make that determination. But in this case, I was trying to encourage this young podcaster to keep podcasting.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think the other thing is the pitch. Like if it's an actual written by a human kind of pitch, and they really, I'm like, you know what? And I go over and I'm like, oh wow, they're only on episode 4. Because I've been episode 2 and 3 and 6, and those people are really thankful that you came on the show. And then when they're on episode, 98 or whatever, they're like, man, I remember you came on, you were episode 4. Again, it's that relationship that you build. I remember Todd Cochran when he was doing, talking about South by Southwest, right? What's the GoPro? GoPro would come on when they were nobody, and he would interview them, and he built that relationship with them. And then, of course, GoPro went huge. And I can't remember, there was a certain part where they got a little too big for their britches. But for a long time, Todd had a relationship with the GoPro people because he connected with them when they were just starting out. So that's another, thing you might want to think about. This is another screen one, but this is traditional. I think I showed this last week now. You know what? I remember this. It's a repeat. What are you doing, Dave? Where somebody said, hey, Riverside crashed on me 4 times in 3 months. I'm done. And so that's fairly standard, Reddit post at this point. And then you'll come down and somebody said, it was down here somewhere. They're like, hey, I've been using it for 3 years and I haven't had a problem. I did see somebody this morning say, what's not Riverside, Zencaster was having a problem. And then it's just one of those where I'm like, yep, that's kind of the way it works here. Speaking of media hosts and things like that, the Podbean sent out an email that said, oh, by the way, we're stopping our ad, our programmatic ad in, and basically it was all the GDPR countries, which makes you, which is really about privacy, which makes one ponder the thought, were they doing things that was revealing customers' privacies to other people? And I was like, that was interesting. The fact that there was an announcement, but it wasn't like, hey, this is coming, plan accordingly. It was like, oh, guess what? If you're feeding your kids on ads, you're going to get a pay cut because, half the world just got cut off. Now, if all your ads are in the U.S., then you may not have that issue. So that was one that I was like, And then the other thing, and it's only 10 years too late, was Libsyn. Back in the day, Libsyn 4 had 4 tabs. You'd put in the information about your episode, you go to the next tab, and you put in your information about that, you go to the next tab, and the last tab was schedule it and publish it. And everybody was like, your interface is old looking. It's not modern. But the technology behind it was amazing. And it was, okay, so what did Libsyn decide to do? Oh, we're going to rebuild Libsyn 5 from the ground up. And so they did, and they never fully moved. Well, actually, they said they did, and then they never moved their Libsyn Pro to Libsyn 5. Rob and I were screaming about that for many months over there, and they never moved it. They started working on a Libsyn 6, and they were just going to call it Libsyn. And Rob and I are like, hey, can we, Yeah. So they started a Libsyn 6. I just found out, and I'm forgetting the guy's name, but kind of one of the product managers of that, in the immortal words of Monty Python, has been sacked. He's now looking for a job. And they finally did what they should have done, which was, wait a minute, Libsyn 4 worked great and it was rock solid. There were no bugs. Maybe we should just put a new face on it and make it look more modern. And that's what they just did. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. So I've come to my own little conclusion about Libsyn, and that is listen to every press release about Libsyn. Like the last 4 have been, Libsyn is the, exclusive sponsor of Slightly Big Show. And then it's Slightly Big Show has decided to partner with Libsyn for ads. Like every time I hear James mention Libsyn, it's about something with advertising. So I'm just starting to look at them as an advertising company. But it was weird. I logged in and I was like, wait, what's going on with the dashboard? And I was like, oh man, it's Libsyn 4 with a new face. So if you're wondering why they made those changes, that's what they did. So yeah. And then, yes, here we go. Ray says, if you handle your own ads, there you go. Then you don't have a problem with this GDPR stuff. So yeah, Ray from Around the Layout, where he's smart. He's partnering with companies that are actually, that make sense. Like his audience might want to actually hear about that company as opposed to yet another Geico ad or whatever. Daniel says the GDPR thing might not only be about revealing information, but about their ability to allow audiences to opt in or opt out. Yeah, that's an issue. And they also killed I guess they had live streaming. I didn't know. Podbean has always been kind of weird. Ever since the short woman with the black hair, there were some people over there, they fired all of their American-based people. When I go there, I still see them. They're coming. They just don't work for Podbean anymore. And so they had one person at the booth at the National Religious Broadcasters, and she was from the marketing department, which makes sense if you're going to man a booth. But I wouldn't say she was a master of the art of podcasting. She knew the product, but if you asked her like, oh, well, what software do you use? She'd be like, what? So that's another company that I'm kind of like, So Mark has a question. He says, I listen to podcasts about podcasting with questions about increasing listenership and engagement, with most answers focusing on marketing and equipment when it's really about improving the content. Well, amen, brother. That man
No, it's actually about both, though. It is actually about both.
Well, yeah, you can't.
Both.
Yeah.
It is about both.
Because if you don't promote it, you can have the best content and nobody's going to hear it.
Yeah, it's really about both, is what I would say in that. I mean, to your point, Dave, you can create great content, but if it doesn't get out there, nobody finds it. And yet, listen, I watch YouTubers all the time that their content, the way they make it, it's okay. But I have a relationship with these guys through YouTube, and I look forward to seeing what they make, even though their content, most people would be like, well, that's not the greatest. So subpar content in front of the right audience is incredible. So you still have to get it in front of people, right? You still have to figure out how to get it out there for people to discover it. You got to do some things to market it and get it out there. And then I think you got to make the content for you. Because if you're not making it for you, eventually you just quit.
Right.
And so make it the best that you want it to be for you. Listen, my Home Gadget Geek style is old. Nobody's making podcasts that much anymore. Interview style, kind of fireside chat is what I've had my audience say it is, right? Just kidding. We don't go in depth. We don't do a lot of details. We chat about our family and our tech and some of the things that we want to do. There's a certain audience that likes that. And I still pick up new listeners all the time, and they're like, how have I missed this for the last 12 years or 15? We just celebrated 15.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know. I didn't work hard enough to get it in front of you. So be careful in the wording there. It's really about, yes, but it's also about marketing as well.
Yeah. I always say the equation for downloads is value in the episode multiplied by smart promotion equals downloads. And that's kind of it's a little harsh, but I think it's kind of true. because if you don't have any value in your episode and you just promote it, just you're spending money everywhere and billboards and stuff. Okay, it's going to move a little, but but if you have great stuff, and you don't promote it, yes, that will also grow at a trickle via word of mouth. But if you can kind of do both, that's the best. Yeah, Daniel Shannon Moore was one, but there was another one. She also ran DC Podfest that worked for Podbean, but Shannon was awesome. She lived in China, which is basically where Podbean is based out of, if I remember right. Here's another question from Ivan. He says, I know you use Ecamm, Dave, but what is the one thing you don't like about it? Well, I have a few things I don't like. There's two words, learning curve. It's like no other software you've ever used. I know I can do, well, here, I don't think I'm doing this because I'm using Ecamm, but if I share my screen and drag this over, can you guys know it gets confused? It's like, why are you Ecamming Ecamm? And plus you're looking at Reddit. My Zoom is now going, do you want this meeting still? No, just keep me active. But I have 5 little windows over here now. And so it's just, if you're ADD, it's like a nightmare. It's like, oh my God, what do I look at now? It was one of the first, because you got to remember, I've been teaching software since like Microsoft Word 2, you know what I mean? Since like the early 90s. So software doesn't scare me. This is just not like any other. You end up with all these little boxes. On one hand, you can change, like I could change the width of the border around Jim's thing. I could change the color because it should match his little light green thing.
It kind of does need to be changed because you're bigger than me. In my window, see how it goes through my tag?
Oh yeah, that's it. Yeah. So
this is the problem. This is the problem.
You have
it is customizable.
So much control that it's kind of, now there are ways you can copy and paste, and I should probably do that or whatever. So the thing I do like about it, he asked it, does it do local recordings? Yeah, it does. And I get a local of Jim and a local of me, and I need to use this for my interviews and just have 2 big, I could have something. I know I have 3 people, but you can go in here and, I could make just me and Jim, like no Ask the Podcast Coach branding at all, and just be side by side. And then I could have, because when I look at the recording of Jim, it's just Jim. It's basically, I get a recording of this, so it's cool and it works.
Which is handy to have.
Yeah.
This week we were doing some videos and I wanted this view, and then I wanted it to switch to the full view and then go back to this view. And we didn't record it that way. It was on StreamYard. We didn't record it that way. But because I had both the live view and I had the backup of the individual, we could then B-roll that in and bring it in to the the produced video. So getting the full person's video is super helpful. I mean, it's a lot of wasted space if you're not using it, but having that full video is super, super handy.
Yeah. Coach Dave says, Ask the Podcast Coach provides a good vibe to relax with on Saturday mornings. We can't bring cigars. You could.
You could.
So a small monthly donation. Yeah, it is a little early.
Ed may disagree with me on that one, but it's a little early.
Yeah, and Daniel remembered her name, Jennifer Longworth. Isn't Jennifer Longworth Barrel Bourbon Podcasting in Kentucky? That's definitely a Jennifer. But she worked there for a while. Getting tired. Okay. Yes, the size of our windows is bothering Randy Black. I need to work on that.
It's bothered him for months.
Months, Dave. Losing sleep. Sorry. Chris said, on Ecamm, you can select live demo mode. That is true. And it will show you your Ecamm windows. Jeff C., who's a big Ecamm power user, is powerful because it is so customizable, but it can be intimidating for new users. And that's why I bought, I forget his name. This is where Rich Graham will save me because I always forget this guy's name. It's something like One Take Productions. I should remember this because I have an affiliate link for his stuff. But I took his course because I wanted someone to just go from head to toe through the whole thing. They do have a Zoom integration, Jeff points out. It's pretty awesome. I was able to have 6 guests on this week's show. How cool is that? Yeah, I had mine up. What I found is after 45 minutes, if nobody is in your Zoom meeting, it's weird because Jim is listed. He joined via Ecamm, but in Zoom, I have no participants. So that, or I had a participant, I don't know, again, Alec Johnson, thank you very much, Jeff C. Yeah, Take One Tech. So I'll put a link in the show notes if you want to learn Ecamm. It's really cool. It's just a matter of, and once you get it, you got it. It takes a bit. It's like Heartbeat. Heartbeat is the tool I use for the School of Podcasting's community and the courses. My brain's on like a 4-second delay today. But I figured out that
you are a little. You're struggling. I think maybe we're both. It's because it's Pi Day, and we're.
It is Pi Day.
Pie.
Nice callback, my friend. But I learned in Heartbeat, you have an offer, and that offer could be free or paid or have multiple tiers, and that offer is then, and you just go into all the, like you have access groups. So you can say, oh, great. When you sign up for this offer, if you pay, you're in access group 1, and access group 1 can see this, that. So it's one of those things that once I got it, like the light came on and I was like, oh, I get it. But it took me a while because again, it's so flexible. That's the hardest thing. When you have these things that they do everything, it comes with a learning curve some case. Jeff C says for our new carving show, we're using the Ecamm interview mode and Zoom, one for the face fronting camera and Zoom for the hands down shot. That's cool. Yeah. So they can be on screen at the same time. Yeah. And then Coach Dave says, it's almost time to start the thumbs up train. It is about that time. So Jim, what is coming up on theaverageguy.tv?
Wow, Coach Dave just killed the vibe, brought the show right to a conclusion.
I looked up, I'm like, we got 3 minutes. We can end early.
I was just kidding. Paul Barron joins me. We talk a lot about heating and heat pumps and home insulation and all the tech that goes into that kind of stuff. It's middle of winter, although it didn't feel that way here. But he joined me to talk about those topics. It's posted right now out at homegadgetgeeks.com. On
the School of Podcasting, I officially don't know what I'm doing. Partly because I spent so much time on last week's episode. When I was done, I was kind of like, But I think I'm going to be talking about SEO and does it still matter? Because that seems to be a popular question. And the quick answer is yes, it does. Please don't just do, because people keep, and I noticed I did this myself. I just created this wall of text and I was like, oh, there's not a single heading in there. And if nobody reads, so keep that in mind. And number 2, had I put some headings in, people could skim the headings and then decide if they want to read it. And then those headings could have, keywords in them and things of that nature. And so there you go. There's the episode. I don't need to, I just did it. So, and I have a bunch of things in my note, Joy, that I could be talking about. So that will be coming up on Monday's School of Podcasting. Also, keep your ears low to the ground for Podpage announcements are coming out this week. And those are going to be fun. And thanks to the chat room. Thanks to all the awesome supporters over at AskThePodcastCoach.com/awesome. We will be back next week with another episode of Ask the Podcast Coach. And holy cow, we're 1 minute early. It's 11:59. We lied to people.